Well, good morning and welcome to episode 198 of Hobby Hotline. I am Danny and I'm joined by Adam from At Heroes for Sale. Adam, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, doing well. Almost got on the 200th episode, which my first episode on Hobby Hotline was the 100th episode when I first started, so pretty close to the 200. I don't think I'm on next week, which would be 200, but either way, doing well this morning.
Well, I got it by accident, so I'm willing to, we can maybe do aftermarket tickets or something. I can.
Maybe I'll call in and just so I can get on both episodes.
Well, 198 is going to be just as good. A lot of interesting stuff to talk to. I don't think you and I have done a ton of stuff together, so I'm very much looking forward to talking to you. A lot going on. What have you, hobby-wise, been up to lately?
Just trying to stay out of the fray. There's a lot of crazy stuff that's happening, which I mean, essentially just staying off of Twitter. I have like a list of like hobby accounts that I follow, so I just like follow this list to get like news and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we got like a crazy PWCC auction coming up next week that has like, I mean, three of probably the best cards in the hobby. You got the Luca one of one. You got the Bryce Harper one of one. Then you got the Mahomes ticket. So I mean, we got a couple auctions coming up. I mean, that's sort of my amazement is that there's always seems like there's some crazy auction going on, which is really cool for news and making content and stuff. So just always trying to stay on top of that type of stuff.
Well, I'm going to put my Venmo in the comments if anybody wants to help me with that PWCC auction. I don't think Adam's talking about the dollar bin. So we are going to have, it sounds like Dr. Beckett joining us in a minute, so that'll be fantastic. And I just wanted to talk about a couple of things that have been going on that I find interesting. First of all, it's kind of this weird time of year where card shows are popping up everywhere, but the hobby's not breaking a lot of news. So do you go to a lot of shows? I know you've been moving, so you've probably been tied up, but typically what shows do you go to and which are your favorites?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to the National, I think, twice. I went in 2019 in Chicago, and then 2021, I believe, that was in Chicago. And then when I lived in Boston, I went to there was the Causeway Card Show, which was at the TD Garden, like at the Big Time Live. That was a phenomenal show. I know the guys. I think Chris is he has like a card shop in Patriots Place, the Card Vault, which is a phenomenal.
I've heard that's amazing.
They have like a really great location, and I mean just
I don't mean to cut you off. Didn't they win
place.
Card Shop of the Year or something?
I think they're yeah,
Or they're a finalist or something. I mean, I've heard they're
something
unbelievable.
along those lines. But yeah, they have. So I've went to those shows a couple times. I'm waiting, moving to Atlanta, so I'm waiting for some shows maybe down here. I mean, I don't necessarily go to too many shows like compared to other people. I'm kind of more focused on like news, and buying and selling isn't something that I do a ton of, to be completely honest. Like I definitely follow a lot more news than buying and selling. But yeah, I mean, so that's kind of my philosophy and thought process around that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm somebody who loves shows, and often I run into this gentleman, Dr. Beckett. Good morning.
Danny and Adam, good to see you guys.
You as well.
How are you?
I'm great.
We were just catching up on what's your hobby week been like?
I've been sorting cards.
Absolutely.
I had the show in Dallas last weekend, and it's getting to be, Danny and Adam, I'm realizing now my hobby involvement has increased to where what I did at the show last weekend has carried over. I'm still processing.
Yeah.
It's fun, but it used to be I could get some stuff, take care of it. I'm still working it.
Well, I don't know about you, but every year I find myself adding one more pair of New Balance shoes to my suitcase, and I find myself needing a little more rebound time afterwards. So, yeah, those are the clutch things. If you guys have never done a national, good shoes and rotating them are I really think the only thing you need to know when you go to the national. But we are sharing. I wanted to talk about all the 52 mantles that have seemed to pop up recently. Evidently, this is now a common card at a PSA 8. So I'm going to run down a couple that have happened recently. And good morning, John. Collectible, their shareholders just turned down $1.4 million for a PSA 8. Heritage, as we know, sold the SGC 95 for 12.6. Currently, Heritage has a PSA 8 that ends in 5 days at 1.2 million. In February, they sold a PSA 8 at 1.56 million, and two PSA 8s sold for over 2 million at the end of 2021. There's only 35 PSA 8s. Now I know there was an SGC in there, but I've never seen this many high grade mantles. Anybody shed any light on this? Is this the market? Is this people liquidating? Is the card just hot from the 12.6 million?
Well, there's no one thing, Danny. It's all the above. But basically, what you've got going here is that cards are clearly underpriced if you don't see them.
Mm.
So the fact that you're seeing a bunch of them means that people think they're well, they don't perceive that they're they're letting them out.
Yeah.
These used to be cards you bought it and you held it. It's no longer a buy and hold hobby anymore.
But we're talking about, Adam. I mean, I know you can play with statistics, but 10% of the PSA 8s, that have moved in the last 18 months. What do you think of that? I know you own a couple yourself, probably.
Yeah. I mean, I think with some of these like higher, which the PSA 8 is, we saw also the PSA 9 sell like in 2020 for like the 5.2 million. I think there's an opportunity cost that comes along with buying one of those cards. I think exactly like Dr. Becca was saying, like if a card's not available, we don't really necessarily know what the price is going to be. So when you see one of them sell, I would also say that people probably bought them at a pretty decent price. I mean, if they're selling them, like, sure, if you're buying them now, obviously maybe you're not buying them at the optimal price, but like if you were buying them 2016, 2017, 2018, and you see one of them sell for $1 million, like, I don't know what they bought them for, but I'm assuming they were probably in, if I had to give a rough estimate, probably like the 75 to 100K range, like if I had to guess, just based on kind of where the market has gone on certain cards and cards like that. So if someone bought something for $100,000, like, and they see a price tag that they could potentially sell it for $1 million, like that's just sort of, if you're running sports cards as a business, that's good business there. Like, whether you're 10xing your money or whatever you're doing. I also kind of look at it with the Jordan card, for example. Like, the Jordan card has had more sales in the past few years than in like the past 10 years. So I just think overall, like when you see such a dramatic increase in certain cards like that, opportunity cost, like you have to find a buyer, you have to find someone who's willing to spend $1 million on a card. Like, so I don't know how many of those people there are out there. So like, and if you are seeing bids of the card as well go, the mantle right now is at 1.4. Is that what it was at?
I think it was 1.2 with 5 days left. Yeah.
Right. So,
but to Dr. Becky's point, real quick, I mean, people hold cards. So right. Is this an opportunity for the people that want to hold the cards to get in? And then like Dr. Beckett said, they're not going to be out in the open for a while.
Yeah, it could also just be that like someone wanted to buy the card and it hasn't come up for a while. So like, I don't know. If someone's buying a card for $1 million, they're probably not spending the last $1 million they have in their bank account to buy the card. So like, they probably look at it as more just opportunity cost. Like if the card doesn't come up for a while, like if this is the last PSA 8 that sells for 10 years, like what's going to be the price of that card in 10 years? And I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's what's going to happen. But I just think there's opportunity cost along with buying the card. That's just kind of, especially with cards like that.
Well, again, like I said, it's everybody's right and everybody's wrong. The opportunity cost, you have to look at it in a different way. What Danny was just pointing out is that there's one coming up every so often. So this is not, so again, if I don't get it this time, I'll get it next time. And so even with a great card like that, there's enough of them, or there's enough of them in the float that you're not, because Adam, in the old days, you would say, when am I going to get this card? It's not going to come up for another 10 years. But it might not come up for another 10 weeks now, because there are people, and my contemporaries that have the really great collections, they didn't pay any $100,000 for any card. they paid thousands, not even maybe tens of thousands, hundreds and thousands of dollars, not $100,000 for great cards if you bought them in the 70s or the 80s.
Right.
Those Mantles were going for $3,000 in 40 years ago.
Right.
Well, and
Exactly.
to your point, the SGC mantle came out of a drawer. I mean, in a screw down case. I mean, that's how you kept a card. Nobody rushed it to get graded in 19, before grading. So, I think we're going to find that there's other drawers, that still have these cards that were put away because nobody bought them to flip them. And I don't think anybody's buying these to flip these, to be honest with you. Even though they're available, I think people who have never been able to buy this card before are excited to buy, I think, a card that a lot of people think is kind of the representative of the hobby.
Well, again, there's a new calculus now that people are thinking if it's a great card, it's probably going to come available on the horizon. Whereas, again, 30, 40 years ago, you thought, I'm never going to see that card. And now it's in open auction. It's available to the highest bidder on a regular basis. So it's changing. And partly, some of them are going into the collectibles and some of these other funds that are buying cards and fractionalizing them. But the fact that there's a steady availability of some of these cards means, well, in one sense it's good, in another sense it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, when you don't see the cards coming available, that means nobody's ready to sell, and that's really what can drive the price up.
Right. And right now, we could either be talking macroeconomics on liquidity, or we could just be talking about the 52 mantles popular to buy and sell right now. I think coming out of that $12.6 million mantle, a lot of people started, going into their drawers again and saying maybe now's the time. One of the things that I thought was interesting is the one on collectible, the fractional one that got vetoed, had a $485,000 IPO in early 21. So it went from 485,000 to 1.4 million, and it was still vetoed for the sale. So I think I hope that's a good sign for the hobby that there's some confidence, long term or in some of this, even if it's just the vintage area, that the confidence, we only have fear to fear, is gone for some of this panic around the hobby the last year or so, and I hope this shows some strength. Yes, the Powerball jackpot. I will take a 52 mantle, or I will take the yes. Thank you, Mad City Brew. I wish I had the money to buy a 52. Yes.
I think even with those, like the high grades too, like the 9s or the 10s, like I don't know when those will sell again, So like the 8 may potentially be the most expensive, or it may be the only available, like, and it may even just be like before it was like the 8's never going to become available. Now it's like the 9s and the 10s. Those are kind of in a whole different category. Like those are, I take it what you will. Like I've seen people say that the 10 is worth $100 million on Twitter. So I don't necessarily think it's that high, but like I think like it is. I just think it's when the cards don't come up as much, that's when I think people are, somebody who has the ability to buy the card, has the funds to buy that card, and they're seeing so many of them sell, like they want to get in on the card because, who knows at what point, like do the 8s just stop selling? Like at what point maybe do we stop seeing so many sales? Like I was just looking at Card Ladder, and they have like pretty much sales data from like quite some time, and like we had one sale in 2015 and then the next was 2019. So I don't know if there was private sales in there that they can't confirm, but those were sales from eBay of this PSA 8. So like, maybe people are looking at it and saying, well, what if there's another 4-year drought of this card? Like what's going to happen then? So I don't know. I think it's good that, the people on, I think it's good that the investors on collectible rejected, because that means I think that there's more optimism that they're going to see increases on that card versus like, the $1.4 million price tag is definitely a flashy kind of number. And for somebody who got in on that at 400, that's a pretty significant increase in what they want and what they initially bought it for. So I think it's good that there is optimism that that card, isn't just one that's going to, just, I don't know, stay sort of steady, I guess, is kind of the point.
I hate to do contrary here, but there's a second reason why people rejected the collectible buyout offer, and that is if you owned a few shares, then you made a few bucks.
Right.
But once it's sold, now you've got some money, but you cannot say you have ownership in the card.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it was even a financial decision necessarily for some of those people. And that was enough to say, we're not going to sell. So like I said, if I owned a piece of a Wagner and I got a chance to double my money, but that meant $50 turned into 100, and then I can no longer say that I'm the owner of part of a Wagner or a fabulous condition Mantle.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's going on there, Adam. So if people interpret it as just that, no, everybody thinks it's going to go a lot higher. A lot of people think that, but a lot of people just want to be able to own that, and they don't want to cash in that stock. So it's not like a stock.
Right.
It's like art that you can hang on your wall.
There's an emotional attachment.
There's an emotional attachment.
Right. Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. The ownership part of it is definitely, I think, a lot cooler than like $50. Like, if that make it. Like, I think I think that's definitely a case too.
Adam and Dr. Beckett, I'll ask both of you. Are you more reluctant to sell cards out of your personal collection that have a meaning, irregardless of the financial return in either direction? I mean, are there just certain cards that just are yours?
Absolutely. That we're collectors after all.
Right.
And again, maybe that's the definition of an investor and a collector. I mean, if you're an investor, everything has a price. If you're a collector, some things don't have a price.
Well,
yeah,
exactly.
I mean, personally, I think there were cards that I bought that were investments that I planned on selling, and those ones I definitely found were easier to sell than ones that were that weren't. Like, and I also think that there's a scenario like I was buying a lot of. There's a Weston McKennie. He's a soccer player for the U.S. He's like probably the second or third best player on the team. I don't want to be a contrarian, I guess, but like I was buying a lot of his cards like when nobody really knew about him. So like I have a ton of his cards, and I've had a harder time selling them because I'm like, yeah, exactly. Like I have like I think I bought. I mean, honestly, full transparency, I bought like I think it was a lot of 40 for like 30, like of his Topps Chrome 2018 for like $30 for the 40 cards. So like I have like a ton of inventory, and realistically I should have sent those in for grading, to be honest, and I never got around to it. But like those cards I'm more inclined to hold on to, maybe because the 2026 World Cup, when it's in the US, like I don't know what could happen with McKinney. Turns into, I think he's probably the second or third best player, but and I think if he keeps doing that, like that's obviously going to help potentially the price. But at the same time, like I definitely think that there were cards that were easier to sell that I knew that I was buying them, that I was going to be selling them, if that makes sense.
Dr. Beckett, is there a card you remember specifically the moment you picked it up? And I know you're a Pittsburgh fan, but was there anything that had that connection to you that you said, this one's never going anywhere?
I don't really think of it that way. It's been such a long time since I bought a card. I bought cards. So I'd buy a group of cards, and there's some of them I like more than others. Certainly the cards of my youth, my father's cards, some cards I got early on, some sets I completed early on that I have a sentimental connection to. Yes, those. But it's been many decades now. A Stallmeyer Mantle that I bought probably for $100, 40 something years ago, 45 years ago. It's worth a lot more when I sell it. Nobody lives forever. It'll eventually find a home somewhere else, but probably not while I'm living.
Well, and I guess that's the thing, and maybe I guess I'm more common than I realize. Is I'm from Baltimore. I want to own a Cal Ripken rookie. I want to have a Brooks. And those things. Listen, maybe I'll upgrade a grade or something like that. But I always see myself kind of owning that card. I'm going to always have one. That's just going to be a part of my PC no matter what. How about for you, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are cards that I would potentially buy that I would never sell, but I think also for the most part, I would say like when I was buying a lot more than I am now, like there were definitely cards that I said like I'm buying this to sell in the future. Um, but I think like when you run across like random stuff, like I ran across like I was a intern for the television station in my town when I was in college, which is we covered the Cape Cod Baseball League, and we were covering one of the games, and I was the cameraman on the opposite sideline, and one of the players of the team came up and was like, "Hey man, like what are you doing?" And like I kind of talked to him for a little bit, and then like he ended up making it to the majors and had a card. And he's not like the best player in the world, but it's probably just a card I'll never sell because it's like it was just such a cool moment. And I mean, even as like a college kid, like I still remember that. I still remember that moment. And when I pulled this card, I was like, oh, I didn't even know like he was going to have cards in this product. And like, so that was like a pretty cool moment. So, I mean, yeah, sure, there are cards probably that I would never sell, but I mean, I don't know, never say never, to be honest. Like, I have a ton of random like wax that I was buying. Like, I have like Prism football, stuff like that. So like, it may even, sometimes it's just stuff where it's like, I don't know. I'm too lazy to sell it. Like that's maybe even a scenario where I've run into sometimes.
Well, we have a question, and I think Dr. Becker, you'd sort of already answered this, but from Vintage Card Collector, what is the very last card in your collection you would sell?
Well, there's a thousand-way tie.
A thousand way tie. That's fair. Those are good odds.
Basically,
We've got about 45 minutes. Let's go.
no, it's what's behind me in my virtual wall, but the wall, my card wall, is about 1,000 cards now. I'm going to pare it down, but those are cards I don't intend to sell. They're cards I want to display. Each one, it's kind of like what Adam was saying. It's not as much based on the superstar aspect of the player, but if there's a connection, and many of them are great players, but yeah, it's a tie. It's a tie. I don't have just one.
Is I want to phrase this properly. I also like to PC the Bill Ripken card. Not everything that we PC has to be valuable. I mean, obviously for me, there's a price difference between the Johnny Unitas rookie and the Bill Ripken error, but I want to own both of them. So it's okay that they're not all 52 Mantles. I just want to get that point across because we started talking about the 52 Mantle, right. And I don't want anybody to get the impression we're saying that's your typical collection. In fact, I would say for a lot of people who like the card, they've done reprints in modern years that are a cool way to have that look. And actually, some of those cards I think are actually pretty good looking. All right, so I do want to talk about the Albert Pujols 700th home run ball. And I've got some maybe different opinions on this, but it sold for $360,000. Dr. Beckett, more or less than you expected?
I think the buyer paid too much.
Well, there goes my theory of having a single opinion. Adam?
Well, I kind of think the opposite. Like I was surprised it didn't sell for more, but then I did do a little bit of research on like some of the most expensive baseball memorabilia, and like I was sort of surprised that some of the stuff wasn't in the millions. Like we saw like the Jordan jersey sell for 10 million. We saw like the Diego Maradona jersey sell for like 8 million. We've seen other crazy pricing on stuff sell for amounts that I don't even know who is buying them, to be honest. Like the 70th home run Mark McGwire ball I think sold for $3 million in '98, which is like the most expensive now.
And there's no way that gets $3 million today.
No, I don't. I mean, looking just based on because of the list I saw, the second was like a Babe Ruth home run from an All-Star game in 1933 that sold for like $800,000. So like. I have flip-flopped sort of on like I thought that they didn't pay, that it wasn't enough. I also get a little bit nervous when that kind of stuff happens, that like the auction houses need to take, how do I word this? They need to take a little bit more accountability on the fact that like, Albert Pujols, like, because the Birdie ball, for example, like the Brady ball sells for whatever it sold for the last touchdown, and then he doesn't, and then he comes and unretires. I don't think Pujols is going to do that, to be honest. But like, I don't know. I just think that there needs to be. I understand that the auction houses want to make the most on the sale, so selling it when it's most newsworthy is obviously going to do that. But at the same time, like it makes me a little bit nervous. Like, what if Albert Pujols, I don't know, comes back for some reason and he hits more home runs? It's like, sure, it's the 700 home run, but I think like you were saying, Danny, before the show, we were talking a little bit about it. Like maybe the 703rd home run should be more like his last home run versus the 700. I get the 700 with there only being 3 other players with 700 is significant, but like I don't know. I mean, I think it can get a little bit. And maybe that's where it comes into the scenario where like the 700 would be safer rather than the 703rd. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. It's definitely an interesting sale, and I think I'm hoping Pujols doesn't decide to unretire. Like I think he signed the retirement paperwork the other day, so I'm assuming that he probably won't. But it's like that's what happened with the Brady ball, so it's like who knows.
Well, and that's exactly my point. I'd always rather have a player's first or last home run than a round number. To me, round numbers make us feel good, but I don't know that they carry the same symbolism as home run 755 from Aaron. I'd rather have that than 700 from Aaron. And so, to me, yes, your point is very well made, Adam. I mean, if he unretires, I don't want to buy the ball that's not his last home run. But give it under the non-Brady rule, where
Right.
we stay retired after our last ball sells. Yes, I'd rather have first or last, and I think that's true. Probably, unless it's a significant moment, I think that's probably true for tickets also.
Yeah, I would agree with
And
that.
I think that's why they overpaid on the ball. I don't think any modern baseball has ever really gone up in value. Um, Dr. Beckett,
Yeah,
if you
and
could have
well,
any baseball,
one other point, like what's
sorry.
even the other than this year we had 2 with the 62 home runs from Judge, but it's like when was off the top of my head I can't think of it, and someone may know, but like when was the last time a significant like thing really happened like in the MLB? Like not to say that there isn't, but like I can't think of any off the top of my head. Like maybe the 2004 Red Sox World Series ball, like maybe that's a significant one. But like other than or maybe some David Ortiz home runs from that run or whatever. But like you know. I don't know. I'm not sure when the last super significant thing has happened, and maybe when the next one will happen. I guess.
Danny, here's my way of thinking about this. I mean, I'm doing a podcast next week sometime with a music guy, kind of talking about how card collecting and music, and there's some different connections there. But there's such a thing as a crescendo in music and a decrescendo where the sound is increasing or decreasing. Well, consider this. Here's my support for thinking that the ball is. I wouldn't have paid anything close to that because in the healthy market of sports cards, which we have, you would, if it really had enduring value, you could hold on to that 700 ball for 6 months or a year
Mm-hmm.
and build the interest and keep increasing the interest. And in a year, wow, people would really be excited about getting it. I think not. I think they needed to sell it and auction it and promote it while it was still in the news. And so the enduring kinds of memorabilia and things I'm interested in are going to have enduring value. And so I think any price like that, like you said, if it's a round number, that sounds great now because that was the chase, but it's not where he ended up. And so they needed to go anything that you need to, anything's being promoted. And you think, is this going to be a top of mind in a year from now? No. You know, uh, home run 755, always.
Yep.
Home
And
run
that's
753,
exactly right.
always. And so that's the thing. If they'd have waited, if the person that got the ball would have, and probably same thing with Aaron Judge. You know, you need to do it now, not waiting. A year. On the other hand, if you had a PSA 10 mantle that you wanted to sell, can you imagine having a farewell tour? Where wherever auction had it, built up the interest for a year that it was going to be in a platinum auction at the National, and in this summer, and they would build and build and build the interest. Would it get to 100 million? I don't know, but it would. But that's something where you'd have a crescendo.
Well, but once again, you're talking about that has a lasting, you know, effect over time. I mean, at this point, Mantle's not going to unretire either.
Well, until the black label
Right. Well,
VGS
that's
10 mantle, which I don't think that's going to happen because I don't think he's going to crack a PSA 10 slab in order to go for the black label BGS.
I don't know. I heard Kunal Chopra talk this week, and I'm very excited. So,
We'll see.
who knows?
We'll
Yep.
see.
Okay, so I think the ball was overpaid for. Looking back, like I said, at the McGuire ball, the Sosa ball. I mean, for a while, everybody was buying every baseball, that Bonds, Sosa, McGuire hit, and I don't think any of them have made money, and I think some of them were destroyed. And I wasn't it the cartoon guy who was buying a bunch of them. He was a fan. Was it McFarlane? Somebody in the comments. Yeah. So I think he wasted a lot of money, to be honest with you. Look in hindsight. Now this gets back to collecting. If you could have a ball that you weren't going to sell and you don't need the crescendo, I think that's definitely when we're talking about that. But for a ball that means something to you, I keep personal, baseballs that I catch at a game. Adam, do you have anything from a personal standpoint? Let me see if I can.
I mean, really, just like cards, kind of. Like I don't really collect too much. I mean, I accidentally collect stuff, like just because I forget to throw it away, or I just like don't throw it away. So I have like a bunch of random like iPhone boxes, like just because like I'm like, oh, I'll probably use this in the future. Like that's something I'll keep, and then never end up using it. But like so no, not really. I mean, it's mostly cards for the most part. Like I do try and get like a souvenir whenever I travel somewhere, like a small thing I can put on like my desk. But like other than that kind of stuff, like not really.
I should have shown this off a long time ago. This was the first foul ball I ever caught for my wife at a game.
Oh, that's my birthday.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, 24th of April.
So
I've
saved this, and this stays in the case on the wall at home. And this to me is worth far more than anything from Albert Pujols. You got the bat mark. It was Bud Selig still back then.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and we dated it, and this was right before our wedding. I do know that. So yes, it was that season. So that to me is never going anywhere. That's on my list of stuff that I would never give up because that was more sentimental than the sport. And I think it's important, that we talk about the collecting, and I do like that. McFarlane bought the balls to promote his sports figures. He doesn't need the money. Okay. So what would you spend money on for a home run ball? I love the 32 All-Star game.
I guess it's tough because like it almost seems like when do these like even become available? Like I was just looking at like the home run leaders, and it doesn't even look like anybody is really even close to hitting 700. So like I don't even know who's the next player that is like realistically even like close. Like I mean, Miguel Cabrera, he's retiring this year. Nelson Cruz is probably either retired or he's going to be. I mean, Stanton has 378. He's 32 years old, so I mean, I don't think he's going to double the amount of home runs that he hit over his career in the second half of his career. But I mean, I don't know, who knows? But I mean, I think like, if it, like, I think game worn jerseys are really cool. Like, if one day I have like a man cave and I want to display some stuff, like some older Red Sox stuff would be cool. I mean, getting stuff signed in person is also pretty cool, I think too. So I mean, there's that also, but like I don't know. I mean, I would, if I were to choose between memorabilia or a card, I probably would go with a card, even though it's a little bit harder to display.
All right, some of the comments here. Anyone still have their team Little League sign ball? I had forgotten that we used to do that. I wish I would have held on to those because not one of us turned out to be an athlete. I have my son's home run ball worth more than any pool house balls. That is true. Double D, I have my Denny McLain Little League gloves signed by Denny McLain. I bet you do. Dylan, any ball from my Little League days is dust by now. Yes. Okay. And hobby champs, Cabrera only needs 98 hits next season to jump 16 spots on the all-time list. That's one of those things that may or may not, be a big deal to you, um, as far as round numbers or passing people. Uh, but one of the things was this week we had a pitcher jump on the show from the Cubs, and I apologize, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but I thought it was interesting. More and more athletes are coming out as collectors. And I'm going to both ask Adam what that means in the current market, but Dr. Beckett, is this something that's always kind of happened behind closed doors, or is this kind of a new phenomenon?
Yeah, I think we saw Trout and like Bobby Witt Jr. have done stuff with PSA, and I think that's really cool. I mean, I think as kids for the most part, like I'm sure a lot of athletes probably grew up collecting cards, and like if they're um, growing up sort of in this era, or even I don't know, maybe some of the older guys in the league, maybe not as much, but I think some of the younger guys, like the 2003 ish era of like growing up, like there was like it was a it was like another almost like overproduction in the amount of product that was put out like in that sort of time period. Like so there's probably a decent chance these athletes have grown up, and even if they haven't, like I'm sure that they are the ones signing all these cards, so like they probably have some sort of interest. Like I'm sure some of them are just doing it for the paycheck from whichever card company they're signing for, but like I'm sure there's some athletes, I think Kevin Durant, for example, has like posted pictures of himself signing cards, so I'm sure they have some sort of interest uh in like where these cards are going, like the autographs that they're signing. Like I'm sure they're probably pretty interested in. I think another cool. I talked to a pitcher for the. I think I'm blanking on his name as well. I'm going to look it up really quickly, but I think it was Daniel Tilio. He is a pitcher for. I believe he's on the Royals. He may or may not have been traded, but he owns actually his own he owns his own Superfractor Bowman autographs for the Bowman Chrome and then the paper versions. So like when he bought the non-paper version, I reached out to him. I was like, that's like super cool. Like that's really cool that he collects himself. I think Montgomery, I think his name was Billy or Bobby Montgomery. He was in this past year's Bowman. He like signed all these like crazy cards and he took a bunch of pictures of them. Like he signed his Bowman cards with like all these like funny autographs. So I think we're definitely seeing athletes be more involved, which I think it's a good thing. I think athletes being more invested, and it's gonna probably come out that like the players are gonna take more care of the cards, which I think as collectors we care a lot about, like just from getting cards like that aren't like bent corners and stuff like that, because the athletes, we saw that video of Vlad Guerrero signing the cards and just like tossing them into a box on the other side of the table. So it's like, I think it's a good thing from that standpoint, just from, maybe we're going to be getting better cards like in better condition from athletes that are kind of a little bit more invested.
And I guess the question is I know Brooks Robinson gave an interview and he specifically talked about not necessarily collecting his cards, but he knew which ones he liked and which ones he looked silly in the picture. But I guess Dr. Beckett, is this a newer thing with the athletes being public collectors? I
Well,
mean, yeah.
it's not newer that they're collectors. I think they're more interested in cards now. And it's not attributable to Fanatics, but it's a trend that Fanatics is going to continue to fan the flames, because they've memorabilia and cards have somewhat merged, and so Fanatics has a memorabilia uh, division, and then they have the card division. And so when you put those together, Fanatics is just going to be interested in promoting collectors of whatever, any kind of sports stuff. And the player that 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago was doing jersey swaps and doing stuff with memorabilia and maybe didn't give cards a second glance. Now they're seeing the cards are big bucks too. And so one of the things I was just thinking about though is that Fanatics has an amazing new source that the previous card companies didn't have, of assets and equipment for future sets. And that is that some of the players have jersey collections of game used, game worn, legitimate photo matched stuff from other superstars that they could release to fanatics to put in future products. So they wouldn't even have to go to the open auction to do that. Because for some of these players, uh, like our earlier discussion, for some of them there's a sentimental attachment, for some of them there isn't. And if there isn't, and Fanatics puts out a call to say we've got a new set coming out in 2024. It's going to be the great icons of baseball from the 90s or the 2000s or something like that. Do any of our players that we're partners with have some cool stuff that we're going to pay prevailing market rates?
Well, not only that,
It could be
so
cool. Yeah.
I was going to say they also have more players under contract for the autograph. So when you start talking about where they can sign and which companies they can sign for, that's going to be a little bit more limited. Mad City Brew, Mike Trout's video of him showing off his own card collection is awesome. It is, and that was one of the things that brought it up. There was also an article this week. Former quarterback Jim Everett evidently pieces his own cards, his own collection. I thought that was kind of cool. So, I know a lot of guys collect their own cards. And, I guess Ethan Roberts was the pitcher on the other day, but I've heard of a lot of guys that do PC their own stuff. But guys like AJ Dillon, they're just card collectors beyond their own stuff.
He does breaks and stuff too, which is pretty cool.
Well, and maybe the greatest athlete card collector ever, and it ended kind of sad, was Delman Young. His collection got actually slabbed, the Delman Young collection. So,
he wasn't collecting his own cards. He was way ahead of his time because he was doing PSA 10s of iconic rookie cards, I think. So he sold way too early.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think he had other issues. Dr. Beckett, could an athlete create their own one-of-ones by signing their own card and writing 101 on the inscription? That's a good question. I guess you can create something a PSA 1010 with the.
Well, there's aftermarket signing that can create one-of-ones, but I don't even know that BGS would standardize the nomenclature to say this is a one-of-one just because the player said it was. I think it's the nomenclature of how a card is described is based on how it was produced at the factory. And then, but then for eBay listings, I think people, I think I could see a lot of liberties being taken there. That everything is a one-of-one on eBay, whether you write it down or not.
Well, it would be a super short print, a short print, a limited edition, a pop one, a rare, never find another one. It's all my favorite eBay sayings. And actually, I'll throw out there also art cards. There are some very cool art cards, and there's some very, how should I say this, cards that are meant to look like regular cards. So they can be very positive. I've got some fantastic art cards I love. But when you're shopping eBay, just keep an eye out for that because it could be either way. What's to prevent someone to writing 1-1 post auto? Well, I guess you can write whatever you want. But I think
so I sign a card for Danny.
Yes.
It's my card.
Yes.
And I put thanks, Danny.
Right.
Jim and then Danny goes in there with the same magic marker or Sharpie or whatever and puts in 1-of-1.
What if you write 1-of-1?
Either now that the handwriting people would have difficulty authenticating my 1-of-1 compared to your 1-of-1. I'm not sure there are any exemplars there of your 1-of-1 or my 1-of-1. So, but again, why would you pay extra, for that? I just, again, if it's, I thought about numbering some autographs because I've autographed my fan favorite card a bunch. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just number those. And I thought, well, again, it's pretty contrived. And And it's an intent to deceive, Danny. The way we're talking about it now, to put one of one just to hype something up. I hope people don't fall for the hype. It's like the one of ones that are out there with cards. There are now so many one of ones that you have comps because of the other one of ones, and not because this card is the only one. Yeah, but it's the only one like these other only ones.
You stoked curiosities. Can the athletes add a hologram to authenticate their post-market auto? Well, I guess they can start their own authentication company. I don't know how far we want to take this. I'm going to go ahead
Well,
and
that's been done. I mean, it's been done. There have been third-party authentication stickers, I think, that were bogus. And so I think that the third-party authentication stickers that are accepted within the organized hobby and by some of these sales platforms are ones that are backed by Jimmy Spence or PSA DNA or Beckett Authenticated. There's there's some phony autograph authenticators out there.
and I'll second that. Especially in the 80s and 90s, if people bought stuff, a lot of times shops would be their own quote unquote authenticator. I just got a call for a huge collection. I mean, hundreds of autographs. And the first question is, can I see the certificates? And, it's John's Clubhouse and, Batter Up Sports and, all the other things from the 80s. So, it creates a problem because I don't know that I can sell that on the secondary market. But if you get an autograph yourself, on a card, you don't need to sell it either. You can enjoy it. So Dr. Beckett's one of one. I don't know that I am looking to flip. Ichiro has his own holo sticker. I did not know that. Yes. So obviously some players are doing it. And I've seen guys try to, have you seen, Adam, where they're now personalizing their autograph? Some of the athletes, they're not just signing their name. They're writing like to win the World Series or, something on the card beyond their autograph.
Oh yeah, it was Benny Montgomery was the player. He plays for the Rockies. He was signing his Bowman, his first Bowman Chrome autos, and he was doodling and he was drawing like cartoons and stuff on the autographs. And I think it's cool. I think I think it would be better if it wasn't Bowman, because I think Bowman is kind of sort of has like a prestige when it comes to like the autographs that you're trying to get out of that product. So and I think it adds kind of, like you said, another level of well, this one has, I forget the stuff that he was drawing. I think he drew one that was there was a rocket on one of them. So it almost adds another level of rarity, I guess. But at the same time, it's, like I said, I just think he was one of the athletes, I think, as an example, that has done that with his Bowman cards. I don't know if he still is doing it, but he was a player that was doing that. So I guess it's kind of interesting. I mean, it also sort of depends on maybe the player. I don't know if Benny Montgomery goes on to be the next Mike Trout or something like that. Who knows what's really going to happen to those cards? Are they more valuable now? Who knows? I mean, it's really it's not something that I think we've seen sort of in the hobby, and there's always so many different things changing and weird things happening with with cards and autographs, stuff like that.
Okay, so I got an idea. So I autograph a card because I'm just wondering, when I autograph a card for somebody, sometimes they sell them. So how do you make an autograph card not be resellable? And that is by personalizing it.
Yep.
Right.
But now you've added another wrinkle to it. So if I were to put to Adam on my card, and then I sign my name, and then I put 424 out of 999. Now people think, wait a minute, there's 999 of them, and 424 means something to Adam, and so he's never going to sell it.
Right.
To Adam, 424 out of 999. If I put to Adam, one of one,
somebody else named Adam may want to buy the
somebody.
Buy the one
in fact, who is it
that
collects cards? Somebody
scenario,
PCs cards that are autographed to their own same first name. I can't remember who it is.
Yeah, there has to be people out there that do that, I would imagine.
That's an issue with me all the time when clients want to sell stuff and their name is, something that's not common. Yeah. I prefer a John or a Bob or a Phil. Maximus is a lot harder to find another buyer for.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, but I actually like when the athletes write stuff. A lot of the younger athletes write, to the World Series, or go Yankees, or whatever it is. And getting back to what Dr. Beckett was saying before, it's almost like an art appreciation. This gives you a connection to the athlete beyond just the card, beyond just the jersey. The fact that they thought about it, I think, is extremely cool.
I think there was a card that came up this week. I don't know if it's every so often it kind of goes viral. It was like a Mike Trout, Bryce Harper card where they were like, I think Mike Trout signed it, was like Bryce Harper's awesome or something. He signed his name, and then like Trout was like, or Harper was like Trout's the GOAT or something along those lines. And then there was also, I've seen recently like that there was like a Kobe LeBron autograph where LeBron signed. It must have been LeBron must have signed first because he signed his statistics of one of the games he played at Madison Square Garden, and then Kobe scored at Madison Square Garden like one more point or something. So then he put his statistics, and yeah, I mean, like you said, I think the inscriptions are pretty fun like that. Like when you're finding maybe cards that, or maybe it's like a set that needs to be created where like where you're signing but you're not exactly signing. But yeah, I mean, I think that those kind of things are pretty cool, I think.
I love this comment. I think all cards for switch hitters should be reverse negatives. It would mess with collectors' minds. And of course, John, who, by the way, please work out safely when you're typing. Switch hitters should have to sign their cards both left-handed and right-handed.
They get done twice as quick. They just
right, exactly.
Same time.
Okay, and yes, lots of funny comments if you're reading the comments right now. So I just want, as we're on the home stretch here, looking forward, we are through the Dallas show. We're heading into the winter. Shows, releases, anything you're looking forward to between now and the end of the year?
I'm disappointed I'm not in Toronto today.
Yes.
That's really where I would have wanted to be, but like I said, I'm still unpacking from the Dallas show.
Right. Yes. No, I thought I'd be in Toronto, but I'm glad to be here. Yes. And I will say by the end of the year, I'm looking forward to the new Bowman release. When I'm not doing vintage, I am a big baseball prospect dork. So I love that every year. And that's more PC than anything else. How about you, Adam?
I mean, we got the World Cup coming up in like 2 weeks. That's been something that I've been. I mean, I think 2019, 2020, I really started getting I got into soccer pretty heavily, like with the U.S. team and all the players kind of outside the United States. So like, this is sort of like the culmination of like doing all that research on like World Cup and like USA players, and I don't know, maybe I sell some of the Weston McKennie cards that I have during the World Cup. Maybe they make it out of the group stage. I hope they do. It's kind of up in the air. Wales, I think, obviously England's going to be making it out, but then it's going to be between them and Wales probably. I don't know. Iran, I'm not up to date on how good their team is, but they're the other one that's in our bracket. So I'll be tuned in for that England United States game. I think it's on Black Friday, I'm pretty sure. So I'll definitely be tuned in for that game. And then we just had I think somebody asked who my World Cup pick is. I would say it's either going to be Argentina or Brazil. Probably. I think I would love to see. I mean, my dream scenario, and this is actually a possibility because of the way that the brackets the way the bracket kind of forms, is a Portugal Argentina final. I think would be the most watched sport. I mean, I'm getting chills, honestly, just even thinking about it. Like, it would easily be the most watched sporting event of all time. Like, I don't know if it would be forever, but like, the world would stop if it's a Argentina Messi versus Portugal Ronaldo final. But I hope the U.S. makes it out of the group stage. The FIFA. The FIFA simulation that they did said that Argentina was going to win and that U.S. is going to make it to the quarterfinals, which would be cool. I mean, it would be a win if we get out of the group stage. If we make it out of this first round, that would also be a win. But so the World Cup is kind of what I've got my focus on for the next few months. And then, one other thing that I'm excited for. There's a Call of Duty set that's coming out in December for Upper Deck. I've been, a big Call of Duty fan. Boston recently got a team last year, so I've been following it like pretty closely. It's like one of the first official Upper Deck Call of Duty sets that's coming out in December. So that's another thing that I have my eye on as well.
Well, I meant to show some of these for our soccer fans. I was going to talk World Cup. This is a Serginho Dest out of 99, and another one of his out of 199
Yes, nice.
autograph patches. So I am gearing up for the World Cup. I have become over the last 4 or 5 years little Brendan Aronson at a 250 and a base Gio Reyna.
Nice.
And this is one where I grew up watching Claudio Reyna and remember his father and how great he was. So, when you talk about cards that I might just hold on to, I may go for his dad's card and keep both rookies together.
Nice.
Because that to me is where there's a dinner story conversation, and those are more fun. Argentina and Brazil don't play as a team. Unfortunately, that time has passed. Well, I do think that it's going to be very exciting. I think it's also going to be exciting for the hobby. I think a lot of people have been, building up for the last 2 years for this World Cup, both with cards and excitement. So going back to what Dr. Beckett says before, I wonder where we are on the bell curve of excitement, as the World Cup goes along. I hope personally that the U.S. does well. But a lot of my cards are also U.S. players I love, and I love a lot of their young team.
Yeah,
so I'm a little biased there, but I think we've got some great young talent. I'm sorry Ricardo Pepi didn't make the team.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
And luckily Pulisic won't be playing back wing for the tournament. So for all the soccer fans out there, that's pretty much beginning and end to everything I know heading into the World Cup. We can go back to Moberg anytime you guys want to, because that's probably my other PC that I will never get rid of. So it's quite a variety. I think Claudio Reyna and Moberg it covers everything you need to know about being a collector. And real quick, most random card that you can think of off the top of your head. I won't hold you to it, Dr. Beckett.
Most random card?
Most totally random card, sports, non-sports, that you've picked up that you keep around.
I can't.
I know you hate those questions.
I can't answer that. I don't. There's not even. I mean, again, it's a tie for 1,000. I'm constantly trying to figure out what cards I want to be displaying, and then I got a bunch of others that I'm going through that are in the monster boxes because I don't care as much about them.
Yes. Adam?
I mean, I guess it would be Call of Duty. Like, I bought some Call of Duty cards actually this week because there was a couple of rookies who were in, like, Upper Deck came out with, like, their Tops Now Call of Duty sets last year. I think they were called, like, Game Moments. I believe that's what they were called. There was a Boston player who was a rookie last year, and then there was a player on Seattle that I'm almost 100% sure that no one in the chat has ever heard of these players, but the Nero and Pred, those are the two players that I bought actually this week. Pretty decent price. I only paid like a couple bucks for both of them, so and I think they're like going to be like the next sort of superstars of the league, like going forward. So those are probably the two of the more random ones that I bought recently this week.
Well, somebody did ask here, Dr. Beckett, do you know what your rookie card is?
Well, it's not the 2005 fan favorites. I mean, no offense, but that card was inserted. Some of them were in packs, and some of them were in the magazine. So they're more plentiful. But Topps had a 92 card for me, and that may not even be my rookie card because there was a regional set in, I think, 85 or 86.
I should have called Victor for this to get some clarification.
Victor is not going to like the regional set.
Right. That's what I said.
And the 92 Topps media set, it's the same one that Rich Klein is in. So it's Rich's. So I think probably that's a rookie card issued by Topps, not in a pack. It breaks a lot of the rules that give Victor heartburn, and me too, except that it's my first card from Topps. And then my second card is 2005, and that actually was in a pack.
I gotta ask, are they graded?
I've graded some of them.
I mean, do you have your own rookie card graded? I mean, that's pretty cool.
Oh, come on. Yeah, but I don't necessarily grade them as much as I autograph them a few, and then I, get them slabbed because I get Beckett authenticated. Steve Grad
Yep.
authenticates them for me, and he gave me grief one time. He said, "That doesn't look like your signature." I said, "Look, I submitted it to you."
Well, I think what you've done is created the one of one that we were talking about.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Switch
Well,
hitter. I signed with my right hand instead of my left. Yeah,
are you a switch hitter?
a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't hit from either side, so I think that makes me a switch hitter also. All right, Adam, Dr. Beckett, always a pleasure. Fantastic episode 198. And I want to thank everybody for all the comments. We had a very full viewer room today, so lots of good feedback. And catch you guys. I'm on next Saturday, and we'll be on Tuesday night. Make sure you follow and like Saturdays on Bench Clear and Tuesdays on Hobby Hotline. Everybody have a good one.
Good one.